Hello, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk, and here we are with the Sony Xperia Z, or Z if you're one of our American viewers. I'm going to do a quick unboxing video for you and take a look at the device. So that comes immediately on top, when we come back to that in just a second. Also in the box here we have a screen protector provided, and then also we have, let's move it out of the way, we have the charger. So it's a USB socket on one side, a UK 3-pin plug, some headphone rubber bits for in your ears. Then we have a standard USB to micro USB sync charge cable, and then finally in terms of hardware we have wired headset, 4-pole 3.5mm jack with an inline microphone with push button for answering and hanging up your calls, and then the actual headphones themselves, which look quite interesting. They look quite large, so we'll take a look at those. They sort of like seem fairly straightforward Sony headphones. And then really the other side is just taken up by the literature, so startup guide, important information and SAR information. Nothing too exciting, and I suspect that most people will probably completely ignore those bits there anyway. So let's move that out of the way. So taking a look at the handset, as you can see, it's another large phone with a 5-inch display. It's a bit of a slab. It's kind of going to be one of those, I guess, that you're going to kind of love or hate, with its very square and very straight size. So I mean, it possibly won't appeal to all tastes, perhaps. But it is a large phone. It's continuing the trend of making phones larger and larger. So with a 5-inch display, which in this case is Full HD, 1080 by 1920 pixels. There are a couple of phones on the market now coming out with these 1080p displays, so 1080 by 1920. The HTC One is another example of a device that has that large display and that resolution. They have a 2.2 megapixel forward-facing camera. The touchscreen is of course full capacitive with multi-touch, supporting up to 10 fingers at any one time, which I guess is kind of impressive, and well, it's going to be the maximum you're going to be able to use, I guess, isn't it, 10 fingers? So there we go. And looking around the device, to the left-hand side we have a cover over a micro SD card slot, which will support 32 gig micro SD HC memory cards. Couple of contacts there, which allows us to do external charging. Really nothing to see on the bottom. There is a tiny hole there, which is the microphone, and in the corner there is a loop hole, so you can connect you know, phone charms or a lanyard or anything like that you want to in that corner there. So the right hand side we have speaker there at the bottom, which it seems to be only on one side, not on both sides. There's an up and down control, which will work for volume. Then there's the power button, and then there's another, what appears to be another cover there. That's it. So that's for your, there we go, that's for your SIM card. So that comes with a little tray for a micro SIM. Just pop that back in, and a cover that goes with that as well. And the cover is, let's undo that cover again. Cover has a rubber seal around the outside, because one of the important features of the Xperia Z is that it is IP57 rated, which means it's dust and waterproof, or water resistant, down to 1 meter submersion in water for up to 30 minutes. So that's pretty cool. I think that's an important feature on phones, actually, because they do get used and abused, frankly. And you know, even if you're out in the rain making a call, you know, it is going to be a lot safer to do so. On the back we have a 13.1 megapixel camera with an LED flash, autofocus and all that kind of stuff as well. There does appear to be another sensor there just in the middle, although I'm not sure what that is. Otherwise the back is completely devoid of anything really, apart from obviously the Xperia logo and a really unattractive CE mark on the bottom, which again is perhaps a little off-putting. But there we go. On the top we do have again another cover with a rubber seal around it over the headphone socket, which is 3.5mm headphone socket for the wired headset that they supply, or indeed for using your own your own headphones. So let me just power up. And there was a small vibrate from inside, and we're just about to start. So let me run down the specification while we wait for it to power up. Quad band for GSM, quad band for HSDPA and 3G. It's also a 4G LTE phone, which supports all the major bands here as well. As I've already mentioned, the full HD display is 1080 by 1920 pixels, and it is a TFT display. I don't have any other details on terms of the actual LCD or technology, and as there's nothing in the specification I've received from Sony, I'm assuming it's nothing too special other than a standard TFT LCD display, albeit that it is 441 pixels per inch pixel density thereabouts. The screen itself is anti-scratch and shatterproof, but again, the specification doesn't tell me exactly what type of glass it is, whether it's Gorilla Glass 2 or whatever, or maybe just sort of a generic shatter-resistant glass. The internal memory, this one I have here is a 16GB model, so 16GB of internal storage with 2GB of RAM, and indeed, actual fact, the micro SD card will support up to 64GB, sorry, not as I stated a minute ago, 64GB of micro SD memory. And not 32, so that's an error just a moment ago. Wi-Fi supports 802.11b, G and N standards, DLNA and Wi-Fi hotspot modes. Bluetooth 4. There's NFC built in as well, so I guess there's an NFC antenna just under the rear as well. Video, this records 1080p at 30 frames a second. The OS is 4.1.2 Jelly Bean with a planned upgrade to 4.2. The processor is a quad-core 1.5 GHz crate with an Adreno 320C GPU, and we have all these standard sensors, ambient light, proximity, gyro, and all those sorts of things all built in, with an FM radio as well. Pretty much covers the basics, with the exception of the 2,330 milliamp hour battery. That's 2.3 amp hour battery. Inside, it is a large device with a large screen, so you do need the power. A 2.3 amp hour battery is there. It's non-user replaceable or removable. It's not a phone that you can take apart. Again, that's becoming a little bit more commonplace as well. So now that we've powered up, let's take a look at the user interface and the OS. So one thing to note here, because of shipping conditions and the fact that the battery's on the power button's on the side, built into this is an auto off. So if you haven't got a SIM card installed, the phone will power off after just 15 minutes. So important to note, perhaps, if you are setting the phone up, as I am indeed, without a SIM card installed, that it will power off automatically after 15 minutes, just basically to prevent the battery being drained during shipping. So now that we're into the user interface, if you've seen Xperia handsets before, it's extremely familiar. It's a pretty common sites. We've got the Google search, voice search with the time there. Walkman, album, movies, Sony Select. We then have Chrome, the Play Store, and then we have the application launcher there as well, which we'll come back to in a moment. Messages, and indeed the phone dialer. Again, pretty straightforward and fairly commonplace. There we can swipe across. Then we have a media player, and indeed a sample image there, which is one I took earlier. We have the video unlimited, music unlimited, and track ID. And then coming back the other way, we have the weather, and then we have the controls here for turning things like the backlight brightness up, data turning on and off, GPS. We're going to turn NFC off for now because we don't need to drain the battery. We'll turn Wi-Fi on though. And then we have the settings menu, and then we have the Sony Select widget there as well. We can add more widgets by simply tapping on here. And adding widgets, apps, and so on. We can add another panel if we want to as well. But there's a selection of widgets that we can add. Again, some of them are standard Android widgets, whereas others are specific to Sony devices. So there we go. At the top there, we have Wi-Fi networks available. So let's go ahead and sign into one here. You can see the keywords come up. It's pretty large. Not terribly unusual in terms of. In fact, it's QWERTY anyway, but Android, any standard Android keyboard, but we're going to sign into that. And then we are connected. That was pretty quick. So that does allow us to go into here. Now we can go into Chrome and say no thanks, and we can do a search. It's not as responsive as I would expect it to be on this touch screen, but anyway, nevertheless, let's go and we'll do a search. There we go. It's pretty quick. Obviously, caveat to that is that we are using broadband and Wi-Fi, but nevertheless, it's loading pretty quickly. The page is rendering quickly. That high res display, full HD display, is doing an excellent job of rendering this text. There are obviously plenty of pixels there at 441 pixels per inch thereabouts. So the text is extremely clear and smooth. Can of course do landscape or portrait orientation, but it does mean that as a web browsing phone it will perform very nicely indeed, and the 5-inch display makes I guess that's part of the reason why phones are evolving into much larger displays anyway. So coming back out of here, we can have a look at the applications that are installed. There's quite a few here. Obviously Facebook is one of the sort of fairly common things that you find here anyway. There's some tools that you can see here. We've got McAfee Secure and Neo Reader. Those are slightly more unusual. We've got navigation and track ID, Movie Studio, Google Play Movies and Play Magazines. So that stuff is fairly straightforward and common. We'll just pop into the Play Store and we're going to go and sign in. Most people commonly know what we're about to do. And so let's go and sign in. It shouldn't take too long. Accept the terms, and we'll do a search for quadrant. Search. There we go, so we're going ahead and install Quadrant, and we'll do a quick benchmark to see how we perform. So let's go ahead and run that quick benchmark, or full benchmark, which shouldn't take too long to run. We obviously do have a 1.5 gigahertz quad core processor, so we're expecting fairly good things from this phone, frankly. So in 30 frames a second there, around 60 frames a second there, which is a good performance with the high-res display. You'll notice the buttons at the bottom there, which would normally be, the back home and menu button there, would normally be capacitive touch buttons off the bottom of the screen, are actually context sensitive on the screen, which is kind of cool. We've got plenty of screen real estate to allow for that anyway. And there we go, so we've got our benchmark performance. Okay, so that's 7,808. To be honest, I would have expected that to be a bit higher with a quad-core 1.5 GHz processor. If we compare that to, say, the HTC One, which we looked at just over a week ago, that was performing around 11 to 12,000 as our overall performance. So perhaps a little disappointing. Mind you, if I run the benchmark a few times, the results can vary fairly drastically anyway. So that's just a rough indicator of performance anyway. In terms of what else we have on here, I would say we could take a look at, well, I do want to take a look at the camera, and you'll notice that I already take a sample photo. One point to note, having reset the phone, the photos that I've taken were not wiped from the device, so might be worth thinking about that if you're actually wiping one of these in order to sell it or give it away or return it or give it to somebody else, that it doesn't necessarily wipe the photos. So interface wise, we have the ability to change the resolution, so we'll change it to the full resolution, leave it on autofocus. Then we've got the scene settings at the top. We can also switch between forward facing there and rear facing cameras, and then we can take video and photos within the same interface without having to actually switch between them. We can actually just push different buttons. So let me just take a quick shot of that. There we go, move those out of the way. And let's go and zoom in on those. So, on the face of it, that looks quite good. Colours are good. The shine and glare and actually picking up the texture of the surface of those jelly beans is good. and you'll notice it is picking up the texture there of the cloth background. However, zooming in a little more, you'll possibly notice there is a lot of sort of noise and artifacts. So I think the compression within the JPEG is possibly a little excessive, so it's a bit noisy, but also we have got a 13 megapixel sensor there, which is a pretty small sensor with 13 megapixels on it, so that also will introduce a certain amount of noise. But I mean, overall, the camera is performing quite well. So there we go, that's a fairly quick look at the Sony Xperia Z. We'll have a full review for you over the next couple of weeks once we've had a chance to really give it a good outing and try it out in the real world. I'd say that review will be up for you in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's twitter.com/TracyandMatt or facebook.com/TracyandMatt.co.uk. Please do ask us any questions about this or any other devices that we've got, and we'll attempt to answer them for you, or indeed cover them in the review. I'll be back soon with some more videos and reviews on TracyandMatt.co.uk, but for now, thanks for watching.